Spotlight on those who served. Brought to you by your local carrier dealers.
We often put a spotlight on local military members for their service. Tonight, an emotional farewell for a sailor. Isaac Parker finally laid to rest tonight, 80 years after he died during the Pearl Harbor attack while serving on the USS Oklahoma. 17-year-old Isaac Parker's remains were unidentified for decades, but recent DNA testing helped bring Parker to his final resting place in St. Louis.
And Chris Nagus was there at Jefferson Barracks at the military as they paid one final tribute.
The pallbearers were born decades after this veteran died. At 17, Isaac Parker lost his young life during the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. 80 years later, his remains finally made it to Jefferson Barracks. Red roses were placed on his casket. An American flag was presented to his heirs. A niece that wasn't born before Parker passed received the honor.
Something we could never have imagined.
Angela Curtis and her family never met their uncle, but they share the same DNA. Curtis was contacted by the military to provide a sample, but wasn't sure what to think at first.
It asked for my DNA, so of course I was reluctant to do so.
But after verifying the request was legit, the process to bring Parker to St. Louis began. It ended today on what would have been Parker's 97th birthday.
It was something that Isaac's mother always prayed for, that her child would be sent back home. And it didn't happen in her lifetime, of course. So I know that she's looking down on us and she's very pleased that he's here in this cemetery.
Others in the crowd came to pay their respects. Janice Dick's father was also stationed on the USS Oklahoma.
It touches my heart, and I got a little teared up, to be honest with you, because it just takes me back to my father and his stories about the war.
She, along with several others with no family connection, felt it was important to be here. And although Parker never lived in St. Louis, his family is relieved to bury him here at Jefferson Barracks. It's a homecoming of a different sort.
His mom and dad are here, and his sister and 2 brothers and his oldest nephew are all buried here. I do feel good that he is in his final resting place surrounded by his family.
80 years later, Isaac Parker's sacrifice is still being remembered. And for those here today, it will never be forgot. There were a number of funerals today at Jefferson Barracks. A funeral director told me the cemetery sometimes has up to 30 of them each day. And I want to say thank you to the Curtis family for allowing our cameras to be there today. It allows us to tell Isaac's story to all of you and to remind everyone at home there are many that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and we are still remembering and honoring them today.
Such important stories to tell. A long time waiting for that family, but a very nice ceremony for them today.
You were telling me earlier his grave was basically unmarked for a long time. They didn't know who he was.
They didn't know who he was, and thanks to advancements with science and DNA testing, they now have identified his remains, and he's now in the same cemetery as his mom and dad.
Yeah.
Wow,
All
that's
right.
wonderful.
Chris, thanks.